Ka pai. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November meeting of the Strategy and Policy Committee, Whanganui District Council. Last council type meeting for November before we get into the real silly season. So thanks very much for coming along this morning. Welcome to members of the public. Brenda, welcome. We're going to kick the meeting off with an opening karakia. And Judd, I think you're going to offer that. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. He karakia timitanga. E oha ki runga ki āranga nui. E oha ki raro ki a papa tuanuku. Turakina ngā mea kino ki te pai ātea. Ui hia mai o korowai aroha. He tonga mā mātou. Ke puta ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama, haumi e, hui e, tai e.
Just before we stand for our karakia, I'd like us to stand and just observe a little bit of silence, just in memory of Nikki Kay. Nikki, I'll just read this if I can, just so I get the dates right. In the 2015 floods, Nikki came to Whanganui and met regularly with the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor to ensure that the recovery was on track. She enabled a $1 million grant to restore the River Road with no contribution from this council, and her compassion for this district was significant. We mourn her passing at just 44 years. We got our words for here, Honoria. I'm going to ask one of our songbirds to start off. I won't let myself do it. E honere, e roria, mongarongo ki te whenua, wakaro, paie, ki ngā tangata katoa, aki hake, amine, te atua, te piringa, tōku oranga, tōku oranga. Beautiful. Thank you. Right, on to apologies. We have apologies from Mayor Andrew, who needs to leave the meeting at 11:30. Is that for an 11:30? Yep, cool. Councillor Jenny for lateness. She is going to be here. Councillor Charlie won't be here today, and Deputy Mayor Helen is going to Zoom in or beam in as and when she can. So I'd like to put those apologies. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Glenda. Any debate? That we receive and accept these apologies and grant leave of absence for the meeting. All those in favour, please. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to items of business this morning? Josh?
Yeah, probably just to note for the housing item that Age Concern Wanganui obviously has the contract for the wellbeing service, and I chair the board, and also for the treaty settlement that I'm on the Pākaitori Historic Reserve Board, which is also mentioned.
Okay. Thank you. I don't suggest that we manage those in any particular way. They're just declared. Thank you. Glenda, did you have something?
I would note the same for the Pākaitori Reserve Board as
Okay.
well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, confirmation of the minutes from our meeting of the 26th of September. Everybody's had the opportunity to read those minutes. Are there any matters of correction required? No, then we'll put the recommendation that the minutes be confirmed as a true and correct record of that meeting. Thank you, Peter. Moving, second, Charlotte. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the reports to the committee. The first one up is section 17A, service delivery review. Reviews, I should say. Just for your information, have a seat, please. Just for your information, item 5.5, the community engagement on collaborative work platform with Te Kapo Waiariki Trust, is going to be scheduled for 11 o'clock because we have guests coming for that part of our meeting this morning. So we're going to kind of work around it to ensure that we can be ready at 11 o'clock for that item 5.5. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Through you, Madam Chair. This morning we're just going to speak briefly around our Section 17A reviews and our proposed approach and forward work programme for the next 6 years. Council is required under Section 17A of the Local Government Act to review the cost effectiveness of providing its services to the community and to consider options for service delivery, funding and governance in doing so. There are some statutory triggers for when the 17A review is required. For example, when you're considering a significant change to levels of service, 2 years before a contract expires, or at any time that we wish, as long as those services are reviewed at least 6 yearly. There are some exemptions to that. We can choose not to undertake a review if we have a binding contract in place with more than 2 years to run, or if the service cannot reasonably be altered, or if we think that the review would not, the cost of undertaking that review would not outweigh the outweigh the benefits. Alongside the statutory requirements for doing these reviews, we also have a desire to review the cost effectiveness and efficiency of our service delivery as part of our 6-point plan to reduce rates, which was adopted alongside the long-term plan in 2024. As a result, it's an opportune time to relook at how we're doing these reviews and set out our forward work programme for the next 6 years. So our new service delivery review program is intended to identify improved ways of delivering services to our community, to enable cost savings and improve cost effectiveness, as well as improve relationships with our contractors, with residents and with the community. The reviews will include a current state assessment, so that would look at how we're delivering at the moment, the costs of doing so, are we delivering the right things to the right people, is it equitable, etc. Options analysis and value propositions to identify things we might be able to look into going forward, and then a set of recommendations and an implementation roadmap that will allow us to move forward with those recommendations into the future. In the past, we've generally done these reviews at more of a contract by contract level. This time we're looking at clumping them up into slightly higher groupings so that we can look and identify better options. Sometimes if you're looking at a really low level, it's quite difficult to really have all the options available to you at that level. But when you look at a group level, some of those options become available. For example, bringing things in-house might not be sensible at an individual contract level, but it may well be an option if you're looking at a series of contracts or a bigger group. We will review and scope each of the reviews independently because there are differences in complexity and detail for each of them. So some of those reviews may require external expertise, some may be able to be managed in-house, so we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis. The CFO is proposed to oversee the full program. However, each of the ELT members would be responsible for undertaking the reviews in their particular areas and reporting those through to the Operations and Performance Committee. The timeline for the 6-year program is contained in your agenda, so that sets out where we're looking to move over the next through to 2030. The first cab off the rank is Parks and Reserves. Sarah, Parks and Open Spaces, I should say. Sarah has very kindly offered to be the guinea pig for a revised process. So her area will be looked at early in 2025. We would look to procure some external support for that review because it is quite complex and covers quite a number of contracts and different things in there. We think that that will cost around the $40,000 mark. We've spoken to other councils who have done a similar thing, and that can be funded from the Spend to Save budget for this year on the basis that the results of the review should outweigh the benefits and offset those costs. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Claire. Can I just ask, and if we use the parks and open spaces as an example, will there be contracts within that overall review that will not be due for replacement, etc.? What's the thinking about how that would be managed?
Yeah, Sarah, you can jump in if you want to, but there are lots of different contracts and they do obviously all have different cycles, so we'll have to look at those. I mean, as you know, contracts can be adjusted if need be, so if things come up where we want to change things, we would have to obviously look into the future and negotiate those. Is there anything you want to add, Sarah? Yep. Thanks.
So specifically, might, you know, as you go through the Parks and Open Spaces review, might that cause uncertainty for contractors about what's happening, or what the future might look for them?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, Chair. The outcomes that I'm seeking to achieve through the Section 17A review program, and certainly as the guinea pig, my words, not Claire's, it is as much about the efficiency and effectiveness of the delivery as it is about the method of delivery, e.g. contracting. So I don't think it necessarily creates uncertainty at all. In fact, it might provide a little more certainty and crispness around some of the objectives that are delivered through contracts.
Okay.
Because we still need to do the work that we're doing. You know, that the work isn't in question, it's the way in which we go about doing the work.
Okay, so forgive me if I drill down a bit. So if a certain contractor doing a certain task has is currently on a 3-year contract and it's due to expire 2026, what might the impact of doing this review in 2025 have on a contract like that?
Well, it could have a variety of impacts. Certainly as part of the review we will be engaging with all of the people that deliver the work for us, so we will have forums and discussions with the contractors. In terms of being specific about the answer for that, the certainty won't change until it changes, and the conversation will be an ongoing one with the people that are delivering the work. So in other words, contractors won't be surprised, and we'll do this collaboratively with the people that are helping us out in the community.
Thank you. So just going back to a comment that Claire made, and I might have this, won't have it word for word. I think you said, as you know, we can amend the contracts, but if you're in the middle of a contract, we wouldn't be cancelling a contract early or anything like that, would we? Because these contractors are geared up for the term of the contract that they have.
That is true. It may be also that we identify things that may at the next rollover be put in place, so we let the contract roll through, and then at the next, we have a forward plan for what happens beyond that expiry. So I think there's a variety of options in there.
Cool. All right, Philippa, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And once again, being the first cab off the rank in that space around open spaces, is it also is it implicit that it's going to be looking at the quality? You know, you talk about, identifying improved ways and relationships and effectiveness and efficiency, but is it looking at the quality of
Yes.
the work?
So part of that also is looking at our current state and what we're delivering in terms of KPIs and performance and what that's costing as well. So it'll be, are we delivering a good service for the right value for money? Is it the right service at the right level of standard at the right cost? So there's all of those things to be balanced up.
And also, like something like the community leases, not quite the right word, but you know what I mean, the community, which is out for review now, I understand, like, or some feedback, the community,
But
the
are you
leases,
talking about leases of property?
that are community organisation leases, like all
That's
those.
outside the ambit of this.
Yeah, so that I'm
17A.
about to ask that. Are they in there at all? In the way of that, some of those bodies may have certain views about their leases, and actually that, for example,
We're not
going into
we're not
specifics.
going into the leases issue. Is the leasing of council property inside the ambit of the Section 17A review is the question?
No, it's not. It's
Right,
out of
okay.
scope.
That's
This
it.
is a review of service delivery, so it's the mowing the lawns, the maintenance of our parks and open spaces.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Did you have another question, Philippa? No. Is there any further questions? Cool. Thank you very much, Claire, for presenting, and to you and Sarah for answering the questions. Our recommendation is that we receive the report, Section 17A Service Delivery Reviews, Proposed Approach and Forward Work Programme. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Peter. Is there any debate? No debate. We'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Rob. Just for your information, Rob, we've got some guests coming for item 5.5. And they're coming at 11 o'clock, so that's when they've been invited to attend, asked to attend. So to some extent we'll be juggling the agenda to suit that time frame of coinciding 5.5 with 11 o'clock. Item 5.2, rating review. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. This report outlines plans for a rating review, including the suggested timeline being first half of next year before the local body elections. A rating review, as you are aware, looks at how we allocate rates between properties, is often mixed up with how much rates we actually collect. So a rating review is not part of that there. An example of what a rating review could look at is how we allocate, for example, the general rate, and that's been contentious for a little while since the district valuation, and whether our current allocation basis of using land rate is appropriate. The report emphasises that, it does emphasise actually the rating review can be complex and costly and time consuming, depending on the level of review that you want to undertake. That is, do we start from the beginning looking at first principles of our rates, or is there a more targeted review that we want to consider? To start the process, we'll hold a workshop early next year with all of the elected members, and we'll look at, or we'll discuss what's broken, if anything is broken with our current rating system. What type of review do you want to undertake? That is a full review looking back at first principles, or more targeted, and whether you want the review to include all elected members through the whole process, or maybe start off with a smaller group to make recommendations back to council. But that's all part of the discussion for the first workshop. So happy to take questions.
Glenda.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just to be clear for the public that might be watching this, this review is not reviewing the rates increase.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. There's no reference there to whether this review includes capital value or land value. Is that part of this review?
It will be part of the discussions at the first workshop. if we go back to first principles, we go right back to the beginning and will include the allocation basis for rates. If we have a targeted rate, a targeted review, then we look at a specific problem you may want to address. I will emphasise if we go back to first principles, we have 22,000 ratepayers, and changing something like the allocation basis impacts all 22,000 ratepayers. But that's something we'll discuss at the first workshop.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you. Apologies for my voice. I will be brief. Drivers for a rating review, item 12. One of the significant drivers was the 2022 district evaluation, which most people would call QV in their language. Would you like to, it's quite clear in the document, but on camera, would you like to be able to explain why that's a significant driver?
The district valuation in September 22, it seemed that the methodology of valuing properties changed to previous valuations, and that they placed a greater emphasis on size of land value, whether that land could be, for example, subdivided, regardless of where the land was allocated, regardless of what was on the land. Because of that, many properties in our district, particularly those in traditionally low socio-economic areas, experience significantly large rating increases. I do want to emphasise, and it's something we need to discuss further from a pure rating theory, that's not necessarily wrong. There is often no right or wrong answer, but it's something that we need to discuss and debate that further, certainly.
Thanks, Mike. Peter?
Yes, thank you. Prior to the first workshop, could we have the first principles so that we can review those?
I will. We will send out information before the first workshop to help in that workshop.
Okay. So is that a yes?
It is a yes,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
not before
cool.
Christmas.
Cool. Thank you.
Philippa?
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Mike, sorry, just could you, what's the timeline? If depending on what type of review we do, what might be the timeline? And I guess the second part is, because if we change, for example, the big deal around the general rate from land-based to capital value, we could obviously suddenly whack people twice, possibly. Yeah, that's, I probably need to explain that more. You know what I think I'm saying there, but the timeline of yes, sorry, is it the next LTP?
There's options here. Depending type of review we have, if the decisions go for a full rating review, the idea is to have that completed and any required public consultation completed well before the local body elections. A full rating review is likely to be implemented in the following long-term plan, but we don't have to. We can do it some of that outside that. So again, we will work through those issues. A full rating review would require significant time commitments from all parties to work through that.
So just the second part would just be, will we be able to get an early indication of, particularly around that general rate, possible the impact that happened with the impact of the land-based valuation on our LT last year, an early impact of what the impact could be if we did move to general rate without having to go make a decision on do we go through the first principles or whatever. So because that's kind of like you said, it's a key driver of why we're doing this.
I understand that, and what we need to do, and I think we will look at the general rate anyway on an allocation basis. We'll look at land value, we'll look at the principles behind allocating based on land value, based on capital value. We'll bring that stuff to you. I think we need to do that, and we need to have full workings behind that. We need to model on all 22,000 properties what that looks like and bring you the full details of that, of what it could look like if we change allocation basis. So that is a piece of work I do anticipate we will be doing.
Fantastic. I think the kind of perhaps a side question that I heard that might have been coming out there was the timing of the next revaluation with what we might be doing. I think it's scheduled for 2025.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so October, it's usually September, October, is it that the valuation, rateable value are released?
Valuation is done, so it'd be dated October 22. When it was done in October 25, will be done. When it's done October 22, we got the results about February, March the following year. So we'll be pushing to get some indication before that, and probably useful for us to have an understanding around their methodology of valuing. We may be able to get that prior to the October 2025.
Great, thank you. Last question, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, as you're aware, I've had long-time concerns about the inequity between the urban and rural sectors over the rural bin service. Can you just confirm that that review will be part of this?
In the workshop, the first workshop, we need direction from elected members about the type of review, and if it's a full review, then yes. If it's a targeted review, what do we target? So I don't want decisions now. It will be the first workshop for elected members to give us direction on that.
Thanks, Mike. Right, we'll put the recommendation then that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the report rating review. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Philippa. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Glenda. Any debate? Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. Just some comments, really. I welcome this full review. During this term, we've seen massive increases in land value through the last district valuation, and therefore some unprecedented swings in rates that disproportionately affected some suburbs. And this unfortunately coincided with dramatic inflation and really highlighted the impacts of rating on land value over capital value. And as the report highlights, there is no right answer, but I'm really keen to have an in-depth look and some detailed modelling to get a really good understanding of the impacts of a potential shift.
Thanks, Charlotte. Philippa?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we've also had members, some members of the community make some strong comments around that we're right out of whack here, and that we, that most councils will be capital valued, and I guess, use the word denigrating the council in that decision. So I think the timing is, we there's every reason we need to do this, and I guess, we're like, as said, that there may be no perfect model. There's different communities and different needs and different stuff that impacts it, but this should give us, I think we want to get those answers through this, and we should. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I would just like to exercise some caution about how this review is treated. We've all seen a pretty severe effect, as Councillor Charlotte's mentioned, about the increases in land values in last year's rate demand. But it is only year one of a 3-year valuation, and so they don't change in the second and third year. And I think that it's very dangerous if we get too emotive about one particular year. This review has to look at the history and judge it on that.
Thank you, Rob. I don't want to disagree with what you've just suggested, but what I did hear in your kōrero is suggesting that people are getting emotive, and that necessarily, the implication there is that getting emotive about things is not as good as being logical and somehow not being valid. So I just want us to be a little bit careful about our language, if we wouldn't mind.
I didn't allege that people were getting a motive, Madam Chair. What I said was we have to take care that we don't get a motive.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
a totally different thing.
Thank you for clarifying that. Ross.
Yeah. I look forward to the review, and in particular, whether it's land-based capital or targeted, whatever comes out, that it comes out at ample time, because of the next election, October 2025, it's very important that those who are restanding or are going to stand for council, that when they put out their policies or their statements, that they have a grasp of the rating system and the recommendations that might be coming out of it, just so that they are better informed when they run for office.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. I'd just like to make a suggestion. There's been quite a bit of conversation in terms of workshops and what workshops are open to the public and what are not. I think this review would be an excellent opportunity to not necessarily have a full open workshop, but to certainly record the presentations and make them easily available online, so that members of our community can be well informed with us as we step through the process. So yeah, it's certainly nothing that we haven't talked about, but I'd ask the Mayor and management to give that good consideration. Thank you. So we'll put the recommendation that the strategy and policy receive this report rating review. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 5.3, review of the trade waste bylaw. Thank you, Mike. Oh, Mike's not here at all. No, hi, Hannah. I did think Mike would have a...
Kia ora.
Thanks, Hannah.
So this is the review of the trade waste bylaw. So this is a bylaw that manages what commercial entities are putting into our wastewater pipes. It's titled kind of more generally as trade waste, but just to clarify, it is specifically about what goes into the wastewater pipes. This review is a little overdue. We were kind of putting it off in the hopes that the landscape around Three Waters would have settled a bit more before we kind of looked into making substantive changes. But we've reached the point where if we don't finish a review by April of next year, the bylaw will automatically be revoked. And we don't think that that would be a good outcome for Wanganui. So there aren't any significant changes that we're proposing. Having looked over the bylaw and consulted with the experts, it seems like everything is more or less functioning as it should be from the bylaw side of things, with the only major kind of change that we're suggesting being taking the material from the schedules and putting it into a separate document that will make it easier to modify in future without having to go through a full bylaw review process. At this point, we're not recommending any changes to the schedules. They are the rules that are contained in them and in the external document that we're proposing are the same. This is, if we need to make changes in future, it will be more easy to do so. Given that this is not a kind of a substantive change to the rules in the bylaw, we don't really consider that this triggers the full consultation requirements, but in the interests of transparency and following good practice, we will be going out for a light touch consultation anyway, just to make sure everybody's had the opportunity to have a look at it and have their say if they're interested. With consultation proposed to run from no later than 16 December and go for 2 months from there, and then we'll be bringing this back for confirmation in the new year. And I think that's kind of all of the main points from the report. Otherwise, I'm happy to take it as read and answer questions.
Thank you, Hannah, and welcome, Tony. Did you want to add anything to what Hannah's just outlined for us? No? Just here in case there's any curly questions. Great, thank you. Ross.
Chair, directly to you, you can rule this in or out of scope. I wanted to ask if it's appropriate at this time to do with the trade waste bylaws and breaches of it, whether our Deputy CE can comment on an update on Tasman tanneries and their situation. Not appropriate?
No, it's outside the ambit of this.
I
item.
accept. Thank you.
Glenda?
Thank you, Hannah. Can you just explain what a light touch consultation looks like?
So Typically, when we go for a full consultation, we put together a bespoke consultation document with a list of questions highlighting the major changes. Instead, this time what we're planning on doing is putting up on our usual Have Your Say page just kind of a summary of what's included and the attached documents and an invitation to contact the general policy team address if you'd like to submit feedback. So there won't be a bespoke consultation form, essentially.
More like a survey?
Yeah, or even just an invitation to email in if you're interested.
Great, thank you.
Rob?
Yes, just as a general statement, this trade waste bylaw was pretty controversial when it came in. I don't detect much pushback from the users of the facilities at the moment. Is there anything, issues that are out there that is of concern as far as the charging of this? Is there anything topical at the moment we should know about?
As far as the scope of this report and these recommendations, no. As far as we're concerned, the bylaw is, there are no issues with the bylaw. The bylaw is everything that it needs to be. There's nothing missing that should be in there. There's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. So for the purposes of maintaining the trade waste bylaw as it is as it should be.
Thank you.
No other questions? All right, then we've got some recommendations up there that I'll read out and then ask for someone to move it. Thank you very much, Hannah, and thanks for coming in, Tony. Really appreciate it. That the Strategy and Policy Committee determines that a bylaw is the most appropriate way of managing trade waste within the district, and that the draft Trade Waste Bylaw 2025 is the most appropriate form of bylaw, and adopts the statement of proposal for the Trade Waste Bylaw review. C, that we approve the draft Trade Waste Bylaw 2025 for consultation starting no later than the 16th of December and running for 2 months, and instructs officers to send the proposed Trade Waste Bylaw 2025 to the Minister of Health no later than the 16th of December 2024 for their comment prior to adoption of the bylaw. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Charlotte. Is there any debate? Councillor Rob.
Yeah. Yes, I would like to take this opportunity to say that this bylaw was very controversial when it was introduced, and it for councillors who were there at the time, it was quite a difficult one to get over, because we had delegations coming in from, even Andrew Talley, head of Tallies, was here in this room talking about this. And so there was a lot of fear about it, where it was heading, you know, talk of 400% increases and things like that. Well, I think it's quite a credit to council that that hasn't been the case since then. I've personally not heard any problems expressed about the application of this bylaw. So it's very much a case of, if it ain't broken, don't try and fix it. Thank you.
Nicely said, Rob. All those in favour of the recommendations as outlined up there, all please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic, thank you. Item 5.4, Plan Change 63, Heritage Notification. Welcome, Justin and Leanne.
Tēnā koutou katoa. This item is seeking approval to publicly notify Plan Change 63 Heritage for submissions.
Move the mic a little bit closer to you, Leanne, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it says back off. No, it says log off. Thank you. The 18-month preparation of this plan change has seen extensive consultation, the preparation and consultation of an exposure draft and recent legal review. The proposed plan changes aims to simplify the process in assessing heritage items and strengthen the provision and the protection of them. Proposed amendments to the schedules of heritage items and archaeological sites aims to improve accuracy of sites and provide schedules that are easier to use. An issues and options analysis is appendix to this report, which details the proposed amendments, the statutory context, and consultation undertaken to date. Notification begins the formal plan change process as set out in the first schedule of the Resource Management Act and calls for public submissions on the proposed changes. If approved, notification will run from Wednesday the 4th of December 2024 to Sunday the 9th of February 2025, followed by further submissions and hearings if required. Along with a newspaper notice and website information about notification, property owners will be written to where proposed amendments could affect their properties which contain heritage items or archaeological sites. It's anticipated that online submissions will be able to be made through the interactive e-plan for the first time with this plan change. I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Justin, you didn't want to add anything?
Through the chair, the only one point that we add to this is that because this is a heritage or a plan change relating to natural built heritage, it has legal effect from the point of notification. So these rules are enforced, but it's the weighting that will go through in terms of the assessments that the consenting planners will do if any consents are required.
Thank you. Scott, this is your particular interest. Did you want to add anything?
I think these two...
Come forward and speak to the mic if you wouldn't mind.
Honestly, my colleagues managed that quite well, but I'm very happy to take any special questions if there are any. I can come forward.
Thank you. You did it quite well, Leanne and Justin. We'll go for very well. Any questions? No questions? Right, there's a high degree of comfort around the table that you've covered the subject off very well, so thank you. We've got some recommendations in front of us. The recommendations are that the Strategy and Policy Committee notes the evaluation report, section 32, for proposed plan change 63 heritage. B, that we approve the plan change 63 heritage for public notification in accordance with the requirements of the first schedule of the Resource Management Act 1991. And C, that we delegate to the principal policy planner to make minor corrections and typographical edits to plan change 63 heritage. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations? Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Josh. Is there any debate? I'm sure if Helen was able to be here, she'd be saying something about the importance of this. So in her
I am listening in, Madam Chair.
There you are.
I can comment if you'd like.
Yeah, go on.
All right. I just want to thank the staff. I think they've done an excellent job in undertaking this review. They've done extensive pre-consultation in the community, and it has been met with overwhelming support. Those building owners who would be added to the heritage protection list have been added with their approval. So I'm not expecting anything controversial, and it's just a really good piece of work by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. That was all a bit spooky, wasn't it? We didn't know she was here. All right. Without further ado, we'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Bring Elise through now.
Oh, okay.
Who's finding Catherine's?
All right, thank you.
We're just going to change the order a little bit. Elise in there.
What for the review?
Long-term plan review.
All right, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're going to move now to item 5.8, review of the long-term plan. It's on page 73 of your papers. Okay, thank you. And we'll depending on how long this item takes, we'll move next to item 5.6. Welcome, Catherine. Local water done well. So thank you, Elise. Item 5.8, review of the long-term plan.
Thank you, Chair, Mordina, and thank you for the opportunity to present this report today. I'd like to acknowledge Robin, who drafted this report but was unable to present it today as she's on leave. So the purpose of the report is to provide feedback on the review of the long-term plan 2024 to 34 and draw a close to the review and the LTP development process. I note it's an information-only report, so the recommendation is to receive it. As you're aware, this LTP was unique and developed in a very difficult economic environment. We're all well aware there were many difficult topics and controversial topics. A review of this process was necessary to ensure we captured the lessons learnt, areas for improvement that we can take forward into the next annual plan and long-term plan cycles. And given the significance of the project, it's always important that we take time for some meaningful reflection. In terms of conducting this review, over the last 3 months, we gathered feedback from staff and elected members through a survey and a number of debrief sessions. So the feedback from staff and elected members overall was the rigour that was applied to the LTP was really positive. The approach taken was quite different in terms of the business case process, in terms of the introduction of the 6-point plan, which is obviously ongoing, and now we're continuing to implement both of those approaches, which have proven to be really successful. And the benefits of having a program manager to coordinate and bring together all of the strands was acknowledged. Despite this, staff in particular and acknowledged elected members were stretched at certain points. There was a lot going on top of BAU work, on top of the LTP. So the review looked at each work stream, and in the report you'll see, I think there's 11 work streams, possibly. Can't quite about 11 different work streams, and it went through all of those. And out of those 11 work streams, there were 5 key themes that just kept on bubbling up. So this is a very light touch in terms of the feedback. The first theme was around the overarching strategy. So we're well aware that that wasn't in place, and it really needed to be in place prior to the LTP starting. So this work is now restarting on the strategy to replace Leading Edge, and we'll have the new strategy in time for the next LTP. Resourcing was a common theme. So staff, just by way of example, staff had 4 working days between the audit finishing and launching for consultation, and there were 5 consultations all launching at the same time, and it ran over public holidays and Easter and whatnot, so the timing was a bit unfortunate. And staff had 7 working days after all the consultation closed to prepare for hearings, and elected members also had a very limited time frame as well to prepare. So we acknowledge those time points were really compressed for everyone. I think it was also when COVID was rampant in May and sort of going into winter, so it was a lot of things coalesced at the same time, and coordinating all of those supporting consultations on development contributions, fees and charges, parking, etc. It just meant there were so many different touch points to bring together. The other theme that came through was more training and more leading into the LTP, so just being clear about what the opportunities are and providing more of those training opportunities for staff and councillors, particularly new councillors coming in. I'm sure it was a bit of a whirlwind for our new councillors coming on board, so there's more opportunity there. Communication, this focused on both our external communication with our community and our internal communication. We do think that the overall 10-year plan was lost in the community because there were a couple of very big issues that overwhelmed the majority of the work. So I think having that cohesive strategy from the start and focusing more on the 10-year time frame and what's happening over 10 years will assist us. Feeding into this is more work needed on pre-engagement. It's really necessary to test issues first and potentially rule things out early, and it's acknowledged that a number of the topics would have been better served through a more collaborative pre-engagement process. However, that I think is a really important learning that we can obviously take forward, balance with the need for efficiency and not returning to the community multiple times on a topic. So having a clear outline of start to end and when those steps are to ensure that we are getting that mix right. And there's a number of operational matters that management will take forward. So they're all in the report. I won't go over them now. As you know, it was a big process. We did deliver a quality audited document. It was delivered in the time frame, and we've got some good lessons I think we can take forward. So a thank you to everyone, including all of our elected members who I know worked tirelessly. So I'm happy to close that process now, move into the annual plan. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise. Are there any questions? No questions? Good. Then we're going to put the recommendation is that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the report, review of the long-term plan 2024 to 34 process. I will move that. Andrew would like to second that. Is there any debate? Charlotte, first cab off the rank.
Yeah, quick. As we move into the annual plan process, I am feeling really well set up for this due to the extreme workload that we all had during the long-term plan. And I just, we've said it before in the chambers, we've said it before in workshops, but I will say it again. Thank you so much to all the staff that worked tirelessly on this. It wasn't an easy 18 months. There was a lot of public pressure that I'm sure that we all felt. But I feel really comfortable with where we landed. I feel like there was really robust debate, and I feel like we were really well taken through the steps and the process. So a huge thank you to Robin, who's not here today, and to you, Elise, and to our ELT, and to everyone involved.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same comments that Charlotte just mentioned, but I kind of we've had plenty of thank yous for this process in the past, but I do want to acknowledge that now we're through that. I think we're in a really good position for next year. I call it the jet boat analogy, where you put on the hard work up front to get the boat on the plane, and we're kind of there now, and I think will stand us in good stead for next year as we had to respond to arguably the most challenging environment in local government in a generation. So well done to all of us around the table, to council officers once again, and thank you for bringing this report to us today, Elise, and for your team, and in particular for just closing this off well. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Josh?
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge staff at the council for this work. As elected members, when we go out to engage with the community, particularly on really controversial topics, we're only as good as the information and the resources that we receive to be able to have those conversations. And I just want to acknowledge staff for all the work that they did, providing us with those resources, providing us with those opportunities to be able to have those important conversations. The one final comment that I do want to make about the long-term plan is that for the first term councillors and for Andrew as mayor, actually, it was one hell of a baptism by fire. And I want to emphasise that for the next induction and the next triennium, my belief is that the long-term plan and the process around how a long-term plan works needs to be an absolutely critical part of the induction process, so that all elected members, whether returning or new, understand how critical it is in our roles in governance. So I just really want to finish off with that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Rob?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The thanks have been given to the staff over the work that was put in for this long-term process, and which was massive, and I add my thanks to that as well. But we have to learn something from the process, and I did highlight that this LTP process, in the words of the Mayor, was the most transparent this council's ever been. And that's true, because prior to this last LTP process, we didn't live stream any of the workshops. We only ever live streamed pre-consultation, the document. And I noticed that how Christchurch City Council did it and live streamed a a sort of State of the Nation address and then one at the end. We took this, well, the Mayor did, took it much further and live streamed everything. And I think if we can learn something, that we can better control the narrative if we manage the release, you know. And I think Christchurch City Council had it right. And for this annual plan, I very much think that we should be doing a live stream public presentation of where we're at, and then again at the end. That better manages the process for both council and the public understanding. So I just hope that's a lesson that's picked up. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I'll just add a few comments. I mean, I think the thank yous are well deserved. That's thank yous to management and our team here, but also to elected members. You know, I think there was a real desire of for meaningful engagement and listening. So I've been impressed by that. So thank you to everybody who, to everybody for that, but also for taking on board the learnings, you know, looking at it very critically and examining, you know, where could we have done better. So really appreciate that, the integrity of that process. We'll put the recommendation then that we receive the report review of the long-term plan 2024-34 process. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, we're going to move now to local water done well. I'm just letting you know that we've got 20 minutes for this because I want us to have a break before our guests arrive at 11 o'clock. So if we need to take longer than 20 minutes with this item, we'll adjourn and then have it after item 5.5. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you very much. Tēnā koutou, everyone. Good morning. This is a report that is one of a series of regular updates to SMP Committee. It is reporting on the outcome of some key work packages in relation to the work that we've been doing with our neighbours to understand how we might proceed with a joint arrangement if that is the eventual decision of the individual councils taking part. And it also provides you with the feedback that we received during the recent information sharing campaign with our local communities, just sharing some information about the government's policies and those changes and what they might mean for council, and inviting feedback on what was important to people in relation to water and water services delivery. I'll make a couple of brief comments on that and then just happy to take any questions more generally. Over the course of October, we received over 200 comments. Some people provided comments on more than one topic, so that's not a direct correlation between people and comments. But we do estimate that approximately 570 people actively took part in that information sharing campaign, either by turning up in person, submitting a comment on our online discussion board or on Facebook, or by viewing video content that we'd posted. The key concerns that came through from people are perhaps not surprising. The key ones were around water quality and cost, and very few people expressed concern about the actual delivery model itself. It was heartening to see some recognition of the good job that the team is doing on the ground, and that things are going well. And the sort of perennial issues that came through around hard water, water softeners and rainwater tanks. That last one in particular tied into a sort of a concern with affordability and resilience into the future about making sure that we're best equipped in the long term to have adequate water supply. Some of the concerns that were expressed were around a concern around if the change and the government's policy meant by default metering, but also concerns around privatisation. To kind of clear up any ambiguity on those, the government is proposing that it will be legislatively prohibited to privatise any future water services CCO. And likewise, they are completely agnostic on metering. There is nothing in that policy that makes metering a foregone conclusion or a mandatory choice. I think more broadly the sector will begin to move towards metering in the medium to longer term, depending on the drivers for each community. So it is not a no, but it's certainly not being driven by this policy in and of itself. And to that point about affordability, the final kind of key concern that came through from lots of people was around affordability. How do we make sure that water services into the future are as affordable for people as possible? And that's also tied up with wider concerns about the cost of living and the affordability of council services, full stop. So those were probably the key points. I'm very happy to take questions on anything else in the paper.
Thank you, Catherine. Any questions? Rob?
Thank you, Catherine. Just the financial modelling, I know this is not in this report. I just ask why that is the case, because this is quite a in-depth report for the public, and I suggest that their interest is in that financial modelling. So what's the reason for not putting that in?
Timing, quite simply. This report, just because of the deadlines, this report was written before we had finished that financial modelling. We got the last piece of information through from the DIA that we needed to do that work just after the deadlines for this. And that modelling will be reported formally in the paper that comes to council in December, where we will ask you to make a decision about your proposed model to include in consultation in the new year. I'm very happy to share the outcome of that financial modelling with you all now. That updated financial modelling, where we took the parameters and requirements of a water services delivery plan from the DIA and plugged all of our LTP numbers in, and also looked at what those new rules and regulations might mean for the council and our costs in the future. We modelled some assumptions about that. And we modelled some efficiencies about what the cost savings and efficiencies could be if we joined up with one or more of our neighbours. And the outcome of that financial modelling is that, in line with the earlier round of modelling that we did with GHD earlier in the year, the difference between those models is almost negligible. It's a matter of dollars per year over the 10 years period. So as we've been saying, the conclusion of that previous work is that if the financial case is marginal, the decision will be about the non-financial factors. Which of those models best equips us to be in a strong position to keep making good investment decisions into the future when we've got different regulatory frameworks and different environmental standards to be meeting.
And just a final question, please. The financial modelling for this council is very important and a potential decision maker, but I think that we also need to know the financial modelling for our potential partners. They must have done the same work that we have done. So, for instance, if we have a figure of, say, 2,500 and Ruapehu has a figure of 4,500, I'd like to know, because what that says is that we're potentially bailing them out. So that's pretty important for us to know. So can we get to know what the financial models are of our potential partners?
Yep. So that modelling that we did looked at the joint models where we included our partners' figures and numbers. And we modelled the assumptions. I've set out in this report here the work that we did around how an implementation plan would potentially work, and when and how you might choose to introduce price harmonisation, or kind of taking a more holistic view to spreading the cost. We don't think that you would do that until you had sort of gone through a 2 or 3 year period and transferred both service delivery and the overheads, so that we can all manage our stranded overhead situation as best as possible. But if you then began to do that price harmonisation from about year 4 onwards, that is where you see that very, very small marginal increase for Wanganui ratepayers, and I do mean literally tiny, compared to massive benefits for Ruapehu and Rangitikei, because that gets spread, but also it's because those operational and capital investment efficiencies begin to kick in, so the cost is coming down for everybody a little bit at the same time as you're sort of spreading out the greater costs that some of our neighbours have.
Thank you.
Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. So if the cost differentials are so negligible, does that then mean that we take into consideration other strategic advantages of who we may or may not partner with?
I would strongly encourage you to consider those. Yeah.
Can you give perhaps some hypothetical examples of what those strategic advantages might be?
So I think there's a few, and there's sort of both advantages and the kind of objectives around how we want to, as I say, best deliver and make sure that water services remain affordable into the future. So that affordability point is a really crucial one. Whatever model we choose has to be affordable for our ratepayers, and it also has to mean that the rest of what council does is affordable. And that also council is sustainable and strong enough in its the remaining bits of non-Three Waters activity to be able to deliver for our communities in a significant way. So I think those are some considerations. Other ones are what gives us the best chance of meeting our environmental and other obligations, such as under the Te Awa Tupua Act. What gives us the best chance of not just meeting those requirements, but exceeding them, doing them really, really well. And that's about how do we keep our rivers and lakes and streams clean and in good condition and thriving, and how do we take the sort of most holistic view to our whole catchment. I think the other really big one is around what also brings the greatest benefit to our community and our economy in terms of keeping the maximum number of jobs here locally, but also offering really great career opportunities to our staff and our people. So there's a sort of a whole range of pieces that plug in there.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may, a second question. How, through the consultation, did you get a sense of the kind of general understanding of this legislative change within our community?
I think there was some good understanding of the issues. I think there was, in the same way, people and communities are broad and diverse. So some people totally got it. Some people were a bit surprised to discover it was even still a thing, because hadn't it been repealed and gone away. Some people were frustrated that the government was making more change. Some people thought that there was a definite case for change and things needed to happen differently. So a really broad range of views, and lots of really great conversations at the events that we had in person in particular, and really struck by some people's sort of passion and enthusiasm and knowledge, often of quite specific and niche and technical topics, but which is really great to see people caring about what's going on in our community and our environment.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Catherine, can you just reiterate and remind the meeting what we should expect to see on the 10th?
So on the 10th, we will bring a report to council that asks you to decide on what your proposed model to consult on in the new year will be. And that is essentially to give us a fighting chance of going away and preparing consultation materials to bring back to SMP committee in February for approval. And the reason for that is that timeline is very much being driven by the government's deadline of a early September date to submit a water services delivery plan. And before we do that, council has to adopt that plan, and working backwards, therefore it means we have to have done the work of pulling it together, and that is informed by that decision and the formal consultation with our communities that is required under legislation about the proposed model.
Great, thank you. So the big headline issues about what we're going to consult about is going to be decided on the 10th of December at the council meeting, and then the fleshed out detail of what that consultation actually looks like will come to the first S&P meeting in
Yep.
the new year.
Yep.
Fantastic.
And in December, we'll sort of set out what each of those options are and the high level pros and cons of them.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your report and the response to the questions. We'll put the recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the report, Local Water Done Well, the update. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jenny. Any debate? Good. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Sorry, did somebody have a light on?
I was just going to...
You need to put your light on if you want to speak.
I was just going to moan, yeah, it's fine, don't worry.
No, okay. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. All right, now we're going to adjourn the meeting. I think probably our guests are out there, but if you'd take 10 minutes, please be at the table before 11. Yeah, I don't want anybody being late for our guests. Thank you. Kia ora tātou. A warm welcome to our guests this morning. We started our meeting at 9:30 and we've thankfully been able to organise ourselves to be ready for 11 o'clock and your arrival. So a very warm welcome. Lovely to have you with us. I think Elise, in David's absence, is going to introduce this paper. So, yeah, it's 11 o'clock, so we'll get started. Thank you, Elise.
Kia ora koutou, mōrena. Thank you, Chair, and welcome to our guests. Apologies, I'm probably quite an inadequate replacement for our CE, who has just arrived. Would you like to do it, or do you want me to keep going?
Only a little bit late, Mr. Langford.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Right.
Welcome, David.
Kia ora.
I know you've got a big day on, so lovely to have you here for this item. Thank you.
Yeah. No, look, incredibly important item, so I wanted to make sure I was here, even if I am only just on time. So, kia ora tātou. Tracy Daz. Ngā mihi nui, kia kōrua. Welcome, and look, it's a pleasure to kind of, I suppose, introduce this item for the Strategy and Policy Committee today. Sorry, I'll catch my breath. Ran up the stairs. So, this item is about a decision to whether you want to engage with our community over the 3 joint initiatives that have arisen from the negotiations between our Wanganui iwi and the Crown Te Arawhiti. Following my brief introduction, I'm going to hand over to our partners and let them have the opportunity to talk through some of the detail. But just as a little bit of background, as you're aware, the treaty settlement negotiations have been ongoing for a number of years now. Back in December 2018, the Council committed to walking beside our iwi and hapu in their treaty settlement negotiations. And these negotiations are now nearing their conclusion. The Council has been asked to consider its ongoing involvement with 3 initiatives in the post-settlement entity, and this signifies an important milestone in the process. The opportunity before us with the land settlement process is for Council to support the well-being of the Wanganui, hapu and iwi, but then also the wider community, and that includes strengthening and building on our existing relationships, finding new ways that we can work together that are really focused on local needs and local solutions, and working for the benefit of Wanganui whānau and the wider community. This is quite a unique situation where the Council has been asked to consider its involvement prior to the finalisation of the settlement process, which is still to go through the formal ratification process. The decisions for you today are to consider whether you approve community engagement on the 3 initiatives, which are adopting a relationship agreement, Tomakanga ki te Matapihi, which resets the relationship between the Council and the Wanganui Land Settlement Negotiation Trust. The second one is supporting the Council to participate in the proposed statutory board, reserves board, and note that this is still subject to finalisation with the settlement negotiations. And then third and finally, agreeing to and supporting the establishment of a new charitable trust, Toitu Te Whānau, where the Council and iwi and hapu would take a joint approach to working with all government agencies in Wanganui for the benefit of all, but ensuring that there's a very strong whānau-centric approach to agency service delivery From a community engagement process, this will be on the 3 initiatives. We're on for a 2-month period, starting 2nd of December, running through to 2nd of February. We understand that the timing is not ideal, particularly with the Christmas break and some of the other engagement processes that council will be running, but it's unavoidable, and we want to get on with this so that we can avoid disrupting the overall negotiation and settlement process for the Wanganui iwi. Our staff have developed a communications plan with support from the Wanganui Land Settlement Trust and the Crown, and there'll be a range of events throughout that period to make sure that our community is well informed around what is being proposed. This will start with 2 panel sessions in the War Memorial Centre on the 9th of December. So look, I'll stop there, hand over to the team for them to fill in any gaps that I may have left, but just to really emphasise, the decisions today are about whether you should talk to the community and tell them about this. It's not about the actual signing up to the process or anything else like that. So I'll pause there and hand over to anybody that wants to talk further.
Oh, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou. Normally I can yell quite well. Just firstly, thank you for having us here and hearing our aspirations of what we want to do together in our backyard. And we do think this is an amazing opportunity for all of us to walk together to feed the well-being of our community, our hapu, our iwi, our wānau, and make sure it is wānau-centred. Yeah, just share what our aspirations are with our community is important. We've shared all of this already previously with our hapu, and these are from our hapu aspirations of what they want to do in a collaborative approach. So that's about all I want to say, other than an apologies from Ken and Amy today, who were going to be here with me today, but we've had 101 things happen as usual, but I'm here, and Des is one of our other trustees on the land settlement. So, ngā mihi.
Ka pai. Would any of our other guests like to speak to this item? You're very welcome. You're not usually shy, Rick.
Well, how can I refuse an invitation like that? Could I just say a couple of points, really? I want to start from a long way back and in a distant place, and that is that most people accept the outcomes we have in our society are not optimum. We've got a lot of failures in terms of kids not getting to school, unemployment, crime, health, etc. But if we want to make a difference, we've got to make a change. And this was one of the drivers for Wanganui Land Settlement, that they were dissatisfied with this, and they wanted to have an opportunity to do things at a local level. But they also realised that if they were going to make changes and bring about a focus on the whānau rather than the individual, and joined up rather than fractured, that they couldn't do it alone. And when they looked around, they found the most obvious place for them to connect with was with the council, the leaders of the community. So this is a joined up approach to look at shifting things more away from Wellington and more to your community to make things better, to do it together. I think this is an interesting proposal because, to my knowledge, it's not been done before. It's new, it's innovative. And the thing that I like about it is that it doesn't put you down a path for which you can't come back. It's an opportunity which presents itself today, but won't be there in the future. The treaty settlement process is here today, and the Crown's got its process it needs to go through, and the Council needs to make a decision ahead of iwi and ahead of the Crown. It can't join later. So this is the time, and this drives us, so I think the timing is not ideal, but it's the best that we can do. I think it does offer an opportunity for the whole community of Wanganui to take into their own hands a lot of these issues, to make improvements with decisions and style of doing it, which is Wanganui alone.
and to have ways of which you can bend the future to a way which is more beneficial to you than if you don't. At the moment, the trajectory we're all on is set, and we're only going to be able to change the trajectory of the future if we do something. And this is one of those things we can do it. And I think the excitement is the joining together of both entities for the whole of the community to try and make life better for whānau, for the community in all aspects. I think it is a remarkable opportunity.
The right, that's fine, I'll get there. Just following on from Rick, you know, the essence of the relationship agreement was here we are entering into a process to reset relationships with the Crown. But actually we need to all be on the same page of what we're resetting, because this is about all of us. So the relationship agreement with the council is about getting us all on the same page. If we can do that with somebody outside our backyard, we can do that with somebody in our backyard. And so that's the essence of the relationship, and based on our values that happen here, not anywhere else. This is our uniqueness back here in our tribal domain. The other thing about the statutory board and the importance of that is a lot of people in our backyard don't understand that you administer the Crown land that we want to make sure we're back and connected with under this Crown relationship. And the community don't know that. Most just see that that's council land, but actually it's part of this package. And we don't want to take that access or anything away from anybody. We want to strengthen how we get reconnected, and we have to do that together. So we are making the collective decisions so everybody's still got access to the whenua that we've never had, other than through other people when it was taken from us anyway. So the statutory board and still being connected and still having everybody in our community have access to is important. But most importantly, from a hapu, from a whānau perspective, iwi Māori perspective, is how do we get reconnected to our whenua? So that's the important thing of the statutory board. The other thing around the Tuatū Whānau and the charitable trust is that it's based on our framework of Tuatū Whānau, being whānau centred, being connected, building up on that resilience through hapu, iwi, community leadership, connecting everybody together to make sure it's whānau centric, and that whānau gets to strive and thrive in our backyard. Don't matter who they are, if they're in our backyard, if they're in our tribal domain, we have a responsibility to manaaki and awhi and uplift it to how we want to be living in our backyard. So that's the key drive from Tuatū Whānau, and that centre point. And the idea around the charitable trust is that that's our way to have that te tiriti check-in with the Crown. Are we achieving what we're actually doing within the settlement and the connectedness that we're having with relationships with Crown agencies? How do we bring that connectedness back to this collective to help us continue to build the community we believe we need to have, reduce those disparities, reduce those vulnerabilities, but build it from a wellbeing space? So that's the summary of the 3 key points that we're trying to put out here to say that's why we want to engage.
Ka pai. Rachel, did you want to speak?
No, I think I spoke at our pre-workshop, and I guess the key message is this is a huge opportunity. Iwi are going to become, through the settlement, very strong leaders. And you will have this unique situation of council, strong leader, iwi, leader here at place, working together to achieve things for their collective community. Very powerful opportunity.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions from councillors. Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess for the benefit of the public, I'd just like some clarification on the recommendations today, and just clarity around the time frame of any decisions on what we're engaging on.
So
So as David outlined, the key decision for today is whether or not you approve to go out for community engagement. We've proposed to start that on Monday the 2nd, and run that through to the 2nd of February. So that's 2 full months, and that's longer than we would probably normally do, but 2 reasons. One, we've all acknowledged the timing is not ideal over summer. Second reason being it is a really important topic. We want to ensure that there is adequate time frame for kōrero. I want to reiterate that this is not a formal consultation process. We have looked at our significance and engagement policy, and we've placed this in terms of engagement with our community. So there is an opportunity for discussion, for kōrero, for questions, etc. But we won't be putting out a formal statement of proposal with formal consultation questions as such. There'll be a survey that will ask people for feedback and questions, but it does look different in terms of the form. It is less structured than what you may be familiar with. It is more of an open discussion. And our engagement events are really focused around being able to sit down and have a cup of tea. I think we've all learned through our engagement that when we're able to talk face to face, and when we're able to listen and hear a range of views, that these events tend to be much more useful for everyone. That said, there'll be a range of ways in which people can give feedback, either through online, through coming to our customer services, and we'll have some paper surveys, as well as in the in-person engagement events, and we'll make an email available over that time. So, in answer to your question, the timeframes: 2 months for engagement. That feedback will be collated throughout that process, and that will be reviewed, and then it will be put to councillors in a report on the 13th of February, which goes to council. At that meeting, you recommendation D up there, you will be making decisions on those 3 initiatives which David outlined. So that is the point at which you will be deciding whether or not to adopt the relationship agreement, whether or not you wish to participate in the statutory board as a member on the board, and whether or not you will establish Toitu Te Whānau Charitable Trust. As is already said, the previous statutory board, while you will agree to your participation, you're not agreeing to the formation of the board. That happens through the settlement process. So we've been very careful about the language there of what exactly you are or will be deciding in February, and what the council's role is. So that language should be very clear around that. And beyond that, that will mean, as per recommendation E, that this process can continue on through its final steps, subject to hapu iwi ratification, and then legislation needs to pass through Parliament. So it's still a few steps to go. So hopefully that's enough.
Thank you, and thanks for the context setting. That was great.
Yeah, it was good, but just a little bit further clarification. The appendixes that we've got with our papers today are actually the information that we're going out to the public and sharing with them.
Yes,
correct?
you have 3 attachments, 3 references. Those will go out. There's also a website which is ready to go live on Monday. That's got a lot of information on there. There's Q&As which have been developed. The first community engagement was on Monday the 9th at the War Memorial. It's a panel session. And there's a daytime one and an evening one as well. And then there'll be further community kōrero sessions at community centres such as Hakiki Street. Unfortunately, we haven't locked those dates in right now, but we will have them up on the website as soon as possible. It's just balancing everyone's availability and getting those dates in.
Yeah. It's been a big job, I know, Elise, thank you. And when you say our website, you mean the council website?
Yes, this will be hosted on the council's website.
Fantastic. Rob, then Michael.
Thank you. At least the resolution is that we approve 3 documents to go out for consultation. But well, engagement. Yet there's only 2 documents here attached. There's a summary. So isn't the public, if that is the document that's going to go out to the public?
We'll just pause there for a moment, Rob. Can you just clarify? I have in my papers 3 documents, Elise, the summary, the...
That's correct. There should be the summary relationship agreement, the reserves, summary of Toitu Te Whānau. I think that the attachment 2 merges 2 of the topics. So each topic is covered in the attachments, but as just said, there is also material on the website, quite a lot of material and questions and answers and further information that will go up as well.
So I understand, that's my understanding too, it's a summary, but why is it a summary? Why isn't the document there?
Kia ora, Rob. Yeah. It's because we are still in negotiations and there's still some finalising we've got to do to get to those with yourselves, if you agree to come on board with us, to get to the rest of the document, the summary of the intent, and yet the deeds are still to be finalised through negotiations. So we can't put those out yet because we're still actually in negotiations. But we can put the aspirations, the intent and the summary of what that is to share with our community, because we still have to do some other steps in the negotiations of what this is.
Okay. So when is that? When are the public going to get that document?
Probably when we're ready to ratify stuff, when it goes out to our people for ratification, because it has to go to our lot to ratify first, to say they actually accept this and it's final. But for us to take the part out that we're wanting to work with yous on and part of our journey, yous have to make a decision that you're willing to do that with us on these parts. And so some of that is still in negotiations, final deeds.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Mike, cool.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify something first with yourself, because I feel like it's 3 different things. What's up there is very confusing to me, because it's not on here. But just to clarify, we are voting today on whether or not we want to go have a collaborative, a community engagement from Monday till February. That's what we're...
So first thing, so on page, the recommendations on page 35 and 36, exactly what you've got up there is on page 35 and 36 in the square box. So just to clarify that, and then your question is about the period of engagement with the community over this matter. Is that, am I interpreting your question correctly?
Community engagement. Not the same. Yes.
And the answer to that is yes, from the 2nd of December to the 2nd of February is the period of engagement with our community.
Okay, so based on that, my questions are, I'm assuming then we've got the capacity and the planning availability already preordained for this, and it's not going to have an impact on our people. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's been factored into existing budgets, and as was mentioned, the costs are being shared and it's a collaborative process. So there's minimal cost. Things like catering, land settlement is covering. There is a bit of staff time, but it's very shared and has been factored in.
So it's all internal costs?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, internal costs
internal
and
costs
that the
plus
settlement trust are carrying as well, is what I'm hearing.
But the council, it's just internal costs?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All budgeted. All right, are there any other questions? All right then, I'm suggesting that we put the recommendation that we have in front of us, which I will read. I will read it and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, Jenny, if that's right. You're right, Dane? So that the committee, the Strategy and Policy Committee, notes the Whanganui Land Settlement Negotiations Trust settlement negotiations with the Crown are nearing their conclusion. That we note that the WLSNT's settlement aspiration to enhance the well-being of Whanganui, iwi, hapu and the wider Whanganui community, which provides new opportunities for the council and the community. that we approve the community engagement on the 3 initiatives which make up the collaborative work platform with Takapo Wariki Trust, and the material is attached at in our papers. D, that we note that the Council will make its decision on the 13th of February 2025 in adopting the collaborative work platform, specifically relating to adopting the relationship agreement, Te Tomokana Ki Te Matapihi. Number 2, the Council's participation in the statutory board, Ngā Tūtai Amaru, which will be established subject to the finalisation of the Wānui Land Settlement Negotiations Trust settlement, and agreeing to the establishment of Toitu Tohano Charitable Trust. And then the final part of that recommendation is that we note that following the meeting in February, the Wānui Land Settlement Negotiation Trust and the Crown will finalise their treaty settlement process subject to hapu iwi ratification, and if supported, the deed will be signed and the legislation introduced into Parliament to complete the settlement. Do I have a mover?
Madam
so-
Chair, I'd just like to ask that a part of this be taken separately, please.
Which part were you thinking that you'd like taken separately?
C.
That's C. Be taken separately. Let me have a think about this. Notes that approves the community engagement. So you'd like C taken separately of all of the other?
Yeah.
What do you think? Where's the lease gone? Notes that
Madam Chair, I would suggest that a member has the right for that.
No, I'm just wanting to understand what you're... Do you want to tell me why you're suggesting it, Rob?
Because I want to... No, I don't want to mention at this point in time, but I just want the opportunity to be able to speak to that separately. Thank you.
Speak to it separately or vote on it separately?
I'll vote on it separately.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm thinking that would be okay, because the rest of the recommendation are notes, and then we could leave what's now C would become our new E last recommendation.
That is fine. That is absolutely fine. If I am able to reiterate that this is different to a consultation process, so we have taken a more flexible approach to how the material is presented.
Yep. Well, thank you. So the answer is yes. Now, I asked for a mover and a seconder of the suite of recommendations, and I heard that Jenny would like to move that, and Josh will second that. So, do you particularly need to speak to that item?
It can be done in any order.
No. What I will do is put A, B, D, and E up first, and then we will put the C second.
Madam Chair, do you not need a seconder for that resolution to be put separately?
No, I've got a mover and a seconder for the suite of recommendations. I am making a determination about taking item C as a separate vote. All right. Thank you. Okay, so debate.
Excuse me, Chair, do you mind if I speak first? As I said, I need to have gone.
Yes.
I'm supposed to have gone. I've stayed.
Absolutely.
I'm supposed to be at 11:30 meeting, but I'm going to be late. I'm going to be in trouble because that's why I'm... anyway, long story. So first of all, just want to say thank you, Rick and Rachel, once again for travelling from Wellington to come and see us. You came last week, Rick on his motorbike in the wet, so thank you for making the effort, Des and Tracy, and obviously Ken's an apology as well. I'm going to read out a little bit of my speech, not the whole one because it takes too long, but to re-emphasise the importance of this kaupapa, of Toitu Te Wānau, and the land settlement and what it means. So it says in an excerpt here that this initiative represents an unprecedented opportunity, a world-first Indigenous council partnership that benefits every individual I say that every individual, not some, all our community in other words, and family within Te Wari Kaho or Whanganui, the Whanganui tribal domain. We are well established with world firsts, and we are excited by daring to be different. The introduction of a jointly governed between iwi, hapu and council local plan is seen as a means to foster stronger connections and achieve successful outcomes at the waiau level. The initiative challenges the ineffective one-size-fits-all approach and seeks to break the cycle of negative outcomes. We are much better placed to make decisions on our community wellbeing at a local level because we know the issues and we know our people. Just to expand on that, we do know our people best. And this is a great example of localism or subsidiarity at its finest. And we've already got examples of this underway with Te Puna Hapori and to use your words, Tracy, it strengthens how we get reconnected both now, but also adding the words into perpetuity as well. And it's an opportunity to engage with our Whanganui community. Yes, it is over a busy summer period, but we've got 2 months to do it. And I think it's a really important time for all our community to come on the journey with us on this. And so thank you once again. And I do need to go. I don't know whether I can vote in proxy or
No, you can't.
probably not. But anyway, I'm sure it'll go through. I'm very, very confident that it will. So, thank you. My apologies. I have to go.
Josh.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a really exciting day, and I am going to take some time on this because this has been the culmination of more than 6 years worth of work between the Land Settlement Negotiations Trust and between council. And I want to acknowledge Te Ara Whiti and the role that you've played in this process as well. I do want to also take a moment to acknowledge the former elected members that have been a part of this as well. So Councillor Graham Young, who was on the Working Party for a number of terms, and also former Mayor Hamish McDougall, who was a key part of bringing this negotiation to where it's at up until 2022. The process to date has been a lengthy one, and as it's been stated in the report, Council passed a suite of resolutions on the 11th of December 2018 that committed us to being a part of this process. And I just want to talk briefly about why, in my view, this is so important and so fundamental. To me, it's fundamental because Te Tiriti was a contract, and you do not honour a contract simply by settling it. The settlement is about reparations for previous injustice and providing redress. But how we really honour a contract going into the future is giving life to its original intent. And the proposals that are before us today are about establishing a relationship between council and iwi and hapu moving into the future. And I want to acknowledge that local government is not the Crown. We are not the Crown, but we are a creature of statute, and we have had functions and responsibilities devolved to us by the Crown, and therefore we have an obligation to also honour the original intent of Te Tiriti, even though we are not the original party to it or partner to it. And so, for me, when I look at Article 2 of Te Tiriti, and I think about what was fundamentally agreed to then, tēnā rangatiratanga over land and all other taonga. And I think about what's happened over the last 184 years and the alienation from land that we have seen, not only in Whanganui since the 1848 land purchase, but right across this country. And I think about how we provide redress for that and how we honour that article moving forward. I look at the statutory board, and the relationship that will be enshrined in that board will bring iwi and hapu closer to the land that was alienated from them. And to me, it is an honour as an elected member to be able to sign us up to being a part of that process. I'm getting a bit emotional actually. This is key. This is world leading, and really means something. And I think I'm going to stop here, actually. I just want to acknowledge you, Des, you, Tracy, Rick, Ken, and all the others that have been a part of this, because I know it's not easy. Also having to justify yourselves and having to justify yourselves to local government, to the Crown, and justify why you deserve to have a seat at the table. It shouldn't have to happen. It didn't need to happen, but here we are. So I want to tautoko you, and it's a really massive honour for me to, and I think for all of us, to be able to take this forward on your behalf. Kia ora.
Josh. Rob, then Philippa.
Sorry, I'm only going to speak to...
Oh, you want to speak to just the last one? Yeah. I was going to take everybody speaking together, but we can do that. Yeah, go Rob, do it.
You want me to speak to the last one?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, I totally agree with the sentiments that are expressed on the documents that have been attached to our agenda. What I am concerned about, though, is exactly as Tracy outlined, the relationship agreement is not finalised, and it needs to go back to Hapu to get finalised. I can't vote in favour of releasing a document that we don't know what's in it at this point in time. And I think that this consultation process or engagement process should be held until that document is available, or that it undertakes its own engagement process. I know we're not voting today to approve the document, but the process I'm just not comfortable with, because when the public get this and they see, oh, this is a summary, there's a one-page summary, it doesn't tell the public anything to engage on. So I'm sorry, it's not because of I don't support all the initiatives in this in these initiatives, but I cannot support just releasing a summary document. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Philippa.
No, thank you. Thank you, Josh, for what you spoke. I wrote down kind of one word, honoured, and I do feel quite honoured sitting here in this council to actually have the opportunity to partake in a relationship agreement with iwi for our whole community. Prior, and to agree this, and that this is so important to you, I guess, and to us and our community, prior to you going forward and as a part of the treaty settlement. I thank you. I guess, like, I wrote also down, I've sat at a couple of tables, particularly Whanganui District Health Board and Whanganui Council for about 20 years, and the need is only greater. Some of our difficult times, the world will go up and down and things will happen in our country, but to be able to have to be able to be in that conversation, for you to give us the honour of having us in that conversation with you about the well-being of our community is just an honour, and that's probably all I really want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippa. Michael, then Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Collectivising this together, I will be voting no on the notes, and the reason why I'm voting no on the notes is because I do not have enough information in front of me on this agenda to vote for those. I will be voting in yes for C, and the reason why is because community engagement is at the heart of what we do, and as long as we have the capacity, the planning, and the costs available, we should always be getting more feedback from the community to enrich our decision making. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael. Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Councillor Chinelo Mackay, because he has whakapapa attached to this way back, and he didn't share it. He could have, but he's too humble, like our iwi representatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for making it here today. This is a significant milestone for our community and for our local iwi and hapu after a long negotiation. The opportunities that come from this collaborative approach and the aspirations laid out in Toitū Te Whānau have potential to divert the trajectory that our social service delivery is currently on. There is little that we can do on our own, and I would like to thank our treaty partners for their tenacity and vision in this area, your commitment to the outcomes for our community. I look forward to engaging with our community on these hapu iwi aspirations and the process ahead. I recommend that our community attends the panel discussion on the 9th of December that will include the Wanganui Land Settlement Trust, Wanganui District Council and Te Arawhiti, whether it is online or in person at the War Memorial Hall. It will be an opportunity to ask questions to all the parties involved. There will be an opportunity to send in your questions beforehand or on the day. So that's it. Thank you very much. And much like my colleagues have said, it is an absolute honour to be sitting here alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you. I'll truncate it a bit because Councillor Josh did such an amazing job of speaking, and I did wonder myself, you know, when I got here, how I would actually feel about it, and I do understand how, you know, it's in a very emotional moment, not as emotional as it's going to be after Christmas. That's going to be fantastic. However, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge our iwi negotiation team and Te Arawhiti for all the work that the entire teams have done over a long period of time. It's been quite a journey. And this is yet another milestone in that process. Council's involvement has been brief in comparison, particularly for our iwi. And it is very unusual, if not unique, that a council is involved even in a settlement process. It is not the norm. We are doing it, you know, yet again, which is a wonderful thing. And thank you so much to our iwi and Te Arawhiti for enabling that to happen and for giving us that opportunity. It has been exceptionally satisfying to be part of the working party, I think since 2018. And it's like, oh God, where did the 6 years go? But they went. So thank you for that opportunity as well, because I think for those of us who've been involved, it's been quite an iterative process as things have changed, and they needed to change to get to the point where they are. And here we are. I mean, we're really close to the finish line, and that's really exciting. It's a collaboration with such a wonderful win for our iwi and our entire community. Local ownership, local control, continuation of access and possibly enhanced access, and so innovative. Toitū Te Whānau, I mean, wow, when you really understand, if you take the time to understand what that means for our community, that is so big. And it is generational. It's not us. I don't think that most of us, there's some younger ones in the room, but I don't think most of us will actually reap the benefit of that, but our mokopuna and their children definitely will. It is a brilliant outcome for us all, emphasis on us all, so it is very inclusive. And it is exciting too that we can now involve our community. We're informing and we want to hear back. So we need to get talking. So I encourage our community to get involved and to learn. In response to a previous speaker, it is most unfortunate that they seem not to understand what is happening here. the part of the settlement that we, the council, and thus our community are involved in is very, very small.
Excuse me, Madam
And
Chair.
we are offering...
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Point of order. Criticism of another councillor is unacceptable. Thank you.
As accurate as that criticism may be.
Oh, Jenny.
We are offering the opportunity to come on this journey, and we're not asking for decisions. We're asking to inform and bring our community along with us, and I really look forward to seeing that process unfold. Thank you.
Thank you. Some excellent kōrero. And I'll keep my comments brief, and I am going to ask the mover and the seconder if they'd like the right of reply at the end of my kōrero. There's been a lot of excellent discussion, Tracy, Des. I'd just like to say a couple of things. You know, there's sometimes we get the opportunity once in a lifetime to be part of something. And this is very much, you know, sitting alongside you and your settlement process is very much a career lifetime achievement. So thank you for that. I'd like to congratulate you all where you are in the settlement process and bringing it this far. I'd also like to acknowledge your tupuna and those that have gone before, you know, in striving to get to this point. Some of the words that I picked out in the kōrero so far was this is a very powerful opportunity for our whole community to benefit, to look to the future, and yeah, like I say, a very powerful opportunity, and thank you. So that's my bit. I'm going to go to Jenny and Josh as the mover and the seconder of the recommendation. Would you like right of reply?
I just want to just remind everybody at the beginning there was a reminder that the relationship agreement, the whole agreement, was placed at council's table way back then when you committed to this pathway. So if you're looking for the full document, because it is still under negotiations, you have it. As councillors, you have it. It's placed before, and for anyone new, if you want to access it and understand it, look in your own documentation. That's all I want to add. That's for you to pick up on, but that's what drove us to today, because you's already committed back then. So nā me.
Thanks, Tracy. Jenny and Josh, would you like a right of reply?
I will hand over to my colleague Josh. I think he'll be far more eloquent than me, and yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Only a brief couple of comments that I want to make, none of which will be eloquent, but essentially just to say that I omitted in my initial speech a couple of acknowledgements, and that's to council staff, to Kelly in particular, who's been a part of this process for a long, long time, to Rob Goldsberry as well, who's been absolutely critical, also to David and Elise and previous staff members as well. And I wanted to pick up on some of the comments made during the debate around not having enough information, because I can categorically say that during this triennium, for the elected members that have not been around the table for the entirety of these negotiations, that we have had multiple workshops, we have had documents collated by Kelly, for instance, that give a chronological timeline of everything that has taken place to date, with all of the documentation around Toitu Te Whānau, Te Tomokana, the statutory board included within that. And for the elected members, as Tracy said, who have been around the table for multiple terms, this council has seen the relationship agreement.
Point of order, please.
What's your point of order, Rob?
Point of order. It's misrepresentation of what was said. What was said was the public, when they are asked to engage, don't have the information. I'm very aware that we have seen the relationship agreement. The public, which is the subject of this, are not getting this information to engage with. Thank you.
I'm not ruling in favour of your point of order, because I think Josh is just stating the facts.
That's right. I want to emphasise that the information that elected members have received on this, all elected members, speaking specifically to the points around not being able to vote for the items that note information, that elected members have received a multitude of different documents that leave us very well prepared to be here in this moment to support all the recommendations, in my view. The final point that I want to make is probably a philosophical one, and I want to go back to before Titiriti, to He Wakaputanga, which was the Declaration of Independence of the Northern Tribes, which uses a different terminology for sovereignty. It's, I've got to get this right, ko te kingitanga, ko te mana e te whenua, which talks about kingship and sovereignty of the land. And reflecting on that, as I said previously, the connection back to land, back to the taonga that was taken, to me is what's most fundamental about this. And so for any elected member around this table, if you have concerns about engaging on the basis of technicalities to do with the recommendations, think broader than that. Think about it in the context of the history of Aotearoa New Zealand and what's most important here today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have the recommendations in front of us. Excuse me, Michael. Thank you. We have the recommendations in front of us. We are voting on items A, B, D and E, and we will take C later. So I'm putting those recommendations to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Right. Against? So one against. And now I'm going to put the recommendation that C, which is approves community engagement on the 3 initiatives that make up the collaborative work platform with Takapo Wairiki Trust material attached. Right, right. All those in favour, please say aye. 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 Against? One against. Those motions are all carried. Thank you. I'd just like to ask you to stand and sing a waiata in celebration of our money today. Thank you. E re re, te awa tupua, mai e te kahui maunga ki tangaro. Ka wakapiria mai ko ngā piringa, hina ko tama upoko tupoho po te kie, ko o te awa ko te awa ko e re re, te awa tupua.
Kia ora mai tātou ngā raurangatī o ngā hui tupu na umangani. Nu parawa ngā kōrero kami i te kani. Ka rawe e ngā kōrero, ai au ki te rangi, ai au ki te nuku, ko te kawa ora, ko te kawa ora. Mauri ora kia tātou e rongo e wake iria ki ki runga ai. Turuturu witi mau e kia tīna.
Tīna.
Tai
Kia ora, Des.
I suggest we what's the word? Pause our meeting for 5 minutes and look forward to having you back at the table in 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome to the podium.
Where are we?
Item 5.7, page 66. Thank you. Would you like to present your paper?
I would, thank you, through the chair. So this report provides an update on the progress of the business plan and is to seek approval to go out for consultation in 2025. So I'll provide just a little bit of a background. So we had a paper come to council in April this year that was around a development of a business case. And look, we went through a process that came up with the best business case. In September, we brought back another paper that had progress on the work that had been done, had moved from a long list to a short list. There's been a number of workshops, and in those workshops we've agreed on a number of key areas like guiding principles and critical success factors within the business case. The strategic and economic business case has identified two options, and those options are the establishment of a standalone entity with a partner or the establishment of an entity that then will register to become a community housing provider. So what we're asking for is to go out, as I said, in 2025, early 2025, for consultation, and the three main questions that we're going to be looking for is, do we want to establish the new entity with a partner? Do we want to establish an entity and register as a community housing provider? And then do we want to put some council assets into that new entity? So at this point we are looking for our next steps, which it will be bringing back the completed business case that's going to be completed in December, coming up with a consultation and communication plan that we will bring back to council or bring back to strategy and policy in February, and then completing the stakeholder engagement and community consultation. So today we're really looking for an agreement in principle subject to the final business case.
Lovely, thank you. Rosemary or Sarah, do you want to add to that? I thought it was a pretty fulsome report myself, but feel free to add further. Questions? We've had a fair go at this issue, I must say, with the workshops and discussions. Rob?
Yeah, thank you. If this goes out to public consultation and the preferred option is to form a chip with a partner, the obvious question people are going to ask is who are the likely partners? So what is the answer to that, please?
So alongside the community consultation, we will need to roll out a process, Lauren mentioned it, around engaging with stakeholders who could be likely partners. The question around who the partners will be won't be asked and answered until after this stage. So it's a more high-level question, should we move to this, and then there'll be an iterative decision-making process that follows that.
Thank you.
No further questions? All right, then we'll put the recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee recommends that there is an agreement in principle that the preferred option is to establish a standalone entity with partners, and that the backup option is to establish a community housing provider, subject to the business case, of course. Notes that the business case will be brought through to this committee in the new year, and recommends that officers prepare the community consultation alongside recommends that officers prepare for community consultation alongside the annual plan in 2025. So that is the recommendations I'm going to put. I'm going to move that. Would anyone like to second it? Thank you, Charlotte. Debate, please. Rob.
Yeah. Thank you. Obviously, I'm going to support this because it's moving this housing initiatives further forward. My concern is that this council was recommended to form a CHIP back in 2017, and it's been a pretty obvious thing to do, and especially in the light of the government announcements in the last couple of days, where they are announcing their partnerships with community housing providers across the country. There's 87 community housing providers registered in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. This is not rocket science, and I'm rather surprised that we're actually taking this to the stage of talking about a partner, because if a partner comes along, the business case will be done surely on the merit of what that partner is going to bring to the proposal. And we don't know this, so I'm struggling to understand how the public are going to understand this. I personally prefer that that all we're doing is creating a community housing provider and moving our assets into it. That's all we need to do at this stage. But I'm quite happy to go along it because it'd probably end up that way anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Josh.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to start by acknowledging yourself first, Chair Kate, for the phenomenal work you've done in leading Council's approach to housing over the last 5 years, and particular in terms of getting us to this point alongside Lauren and Sarah and Rosemary and all others who have driven this. And I want to acknowledge KPMG as well, who have provided us with some really easily decipherable information that has informed us leading to this point. I'm going to support this. It's obvious that we have a significant shortage of housing in Wanganui. We need a new entity that enables us to attract the capital and undertake a building program, if you like, that we are not able to deliver on our own. And obviously, based on the Turley report, I think it was, that we've got some challenges in our older persons housing portfolio as well around the maintenance requirements on those units that need addressing as well. But I just want to finish off by emphasising that it is absolutely critical that when we go through this process publicly, that we give our tenants in the pensioner housing older persons portfolio a guarantee that they have certainty of tenancy over that time. That's fundamental. We've got to give that assurance. And further to that, a bottom line for me entering into a new entity, if that's the direction that we go in, is that affordable rentals for our most vulnerable community are maintained, and that needs to be a critical aspect of any negotiation with any partner that joins up with us in this process. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Josh. Are there any further speakers? No, thank you. All right, just a couple of comments from myself. Really like to acknowledge the team who are leading this work. It has been slow at times, but it has needed to be, because this is a big deal. If we want to pull this off and achieve all of those things that Josh has just talked about, we need to be very methodical, very thoughtful, and very deliberate about what we do. And Sarah, David, Rosemary and the team have been very clear about that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Lauren in this process, because Lauren has long been on this journey for many years about elevating the issue of housing for this council. Even before it was fashionable, Lauren was banging on about it. So thank you, Lauren, for your longevity in this and your continued hard work, and to the rest of the team also. I think it's really important that, I think Sarah used the word iterative. This is a big deal, and it's really important that our community comes along with us and is really well informed, and therefore it needs to be an iterative process. I hear you, Councillor Rob, when my interpretation of what you're offering to this conversation is that you'd like to go out with very clear very clear discussion points. However, this is a very complex area, and I think we owe it to our community to go out with and have that iterative conversation. You know, it might not, we're going to have to work really hard to make sure that it is a clear conversation because it is so complex. So thank you for your kōrero to that, Rob. We need to work really hard to make sure it is a clear conversation. But like I say, I think our community deserves to know all of the information for us to be as transparent as we possibly can about what the future might look like. And that's why we're going out with not just the one option, but a bit of a series of options. So I look forward to the conversation in the new year. Josh was quite right to acknowledge KPMG's work in this. I mean, it is very thorough, very deliberate, and I think it can only stand us in good stead for the next part of our conversation next year. Without further ado then, I will put the recommendation that the, I haven't read it out already, have I? No. That the Strategy and Policy Committee recommends that there is an agreement in principle that the preferred option is to establish a standalone entity with partners, and that the backup option is to establish a community housing provider, subject to the business case. That we note that the business case will be brought to the committee in the new year, and that we recommend that officers prepare for community consultation alongside the annual plan in 2025. That is the recommendation before you. All of those in favour, please say aye. Anybody against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Woohoo. Item 5.9 is the legislation and consultation update for November. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you, Chair. So you're very familiar with this. This is the regular information only report that goes up to each strategy and policy meeting. Purpose of the report is to keep you informed of legislation, consultation, reviews and decisions made by central government and other agencies which may impact on the council or the wider community. Since our last report in September, we've drafted 2 submissions. These were on the Otaki to North of Levin highway tolling proposal and draft regulations for including natural hazard information in LIMS. So the submissions are attached for your information to the report. As you'll see in the current or upcoming consultations section, there's now quite a long list there of either ones that are open or the government has signalled will be upcoming, and a lot of those dates haven't been confirmed yet, so there's a lot of TBC on the list. But the ones that we do know about, and we've got times for sorry, we don't have an exact time, but the 3rd local water done well bill, that is a bit of a mouthful, Catherine has talked about that, so of course we'll be submitting on that, but we are expecting it to come up over the Christmas January period. Then there's the Principles of Treaty of Waitangi bill that's open till the 7th of January, and the electoral reform issues paper that's open until the 20th of January. So those dates are set. However, there's a very long list of other bills and consultations, in particular the Local Government Act, the Resource Management Act, Building Act reform, emergency management, and then the legislation to enact the secondary dwellings, or as it's been called, granny flats. So that I hear had a very large number of submissions, over 2,000, and so now it's making its way through the process to become law. So that's really it for now. It's just a signal there's a lot coming down the pipeline. We will keep you as informed as we can, but obviously with the next strategy and policy meeting being in February, I expect there'll probably have been 3 or 4 submissions between now and then, and hopefully we'll have more information and direction, particularly around the reform to the Local Government Act. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Elise. Charlotte?
Thank you. Just a quick one from me. The fast track approvals bill, it's said that that it wants to be passed by the end of the year. Is there any indication on a date that might happen by that you know of?
Only the information that is there, which is it's completed its second reading. It's beyond the point where it, how do I say this, where there can be further influence.
Yeah.
It's now on its track to go through final reading and royal assent. Is that the correct word? Royal, gets its, yeah.
It'll be passed.
It will be passed.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I suspect it will be right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Ross?
Thank you,
Question?
Chair. Under the electoral reform issues paper, whether it's STV, first past the post, or a 4-year term, can I assume safely that such legislation, if it goes through, will not impact upon the local bodies elections in October 2025? You got no word on that?
I very much doubt that would be possible now. This is an issues paper, so it's obviously in its early stage. Similarly with the granny flats discussion paper, it would then need to go through a legislative process, so I suspect it will be sometime later and would not impact on this election. Yeah, but I can't guarantee that. Yeah, I'll check for you.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, submissions closed 7th of January. Madam Chair, I want to ask the question of whether we should even be lodging a submission on this. And I would like to ask whether we could have the opportunity at some time of deciding whether we lodge a submission on this. It's in this document, but I do think that we have no mandate from the community for councillors around this table to make that. Others may disagree, but essentially it will be a very politically charged submission, and the question of whether we even submit needs to be discussed.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I was going to raise that issue for discussion. I've had a conversation with Elise, and I've had a conversation with Josh. We didn't think that that management should be providing a submission because, for exactly that issue that Rob, that you raised, that it is a very charged discussion. Where I've landed is asked Josh to prepare a submission to see how it goes, and that submission in draft would be sent around councillors to see if we can get some support, and if there is sufficient support to send it off as a submission from this council, then I suggest, with the Mayor's indulgence, that might happen, but if not, then it won't. Did you want to add to that, Josh?
No, I think you've summarised it well. That like any submission, particularly ones that are contentious, we would always seek to get 7 votes in support before putting anything forward that represents the view of council.
Yeah, I think it might even be a little bit more nuanced than that, Josh. The Mayor might decide to do the kind of 7-7, but if there is some very vehement opposition to putting a submission such as 7 of us agree to, then it's the mayor's call about what he does. Yes, Philippa.
Oh, yeah, I guess, my only issue is we're talking to it now and it's good, it's a public forum, meeting, but I had presumed this wasn't, reading this, I was like, council's not putting in a submission, and it would have been good to have something in here because it seems, possibly not, and Chair, unless this was raised, we wouldn't necessarily know that until we see something.
Oh.
And that's probably what I think for absolute transparency, it would be good to have had something in there.
I think I won't take exception with what you've just suggested, but it was very clearly on my radar to raise the issue as part of this meeting, Philippa. So you might suggest that it was going to fly under the radar, but that's not the case. Bringing up that issue at this meeting right now. Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, question for the chair. Would it be appropriate for us to give a straw poll for encouragement for Josh to?
I would suggest not, Peter, because we don't know what Josh is going to say. I think it's
I have a
something-
fair idea.
Yeah, no, we're not going there. I think we'll make a fully informed decision once Josh has drafted a submission, and then the mayor will take over the process in terms of what goes and what doesn't go.
Thank you. So just as a point of clarification, the way that this report is laid out, can you just give us a little, a clarification on how it is built, as in what we have submitted on or what we will submit on, or what is possible for us to submit on?
So it does get a little confusing because when legislation is introduced, in most cases, but not all cases, we have an opportunity to submit. So we try to lay out the report in terms of legislation which is introduced but progressed beyond the point where we can submit, and that's on the front page. So it's sort of FYI, this is now, making its way through the system, and then the legislation which is passed means it's now enacted and becomes law. Recent consultations tells you what we have submitted on, and then the upcoming consultations. In the status column, where I am confident that we are going to submit, I will put submit. Where I'm not sure, it will just give us the indication of the closing date, and all of these other ones are TBC because I don't have a closing date or a direction yet. So it is very iterative, and we build it up each time. Very open to suggestions on how to restructure it or make that clearer. Very happy to take feedback.
So just as a clarity, so the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, as is stated in the status column, there's an opportunity for us to submit, but nothing is decided, correct?
No decision, as Kate said, no decision has been made whether or not to submit on it or not. The agreed process for this one was that Josh would draft it on behalf of elected members, and then elected members would decide if they would submit it or not, which is just a slight change to the normal process, which is me or my team would draft something, we would circulate it around, we would get a sense of whether or not you're comfortable and wish to submit. If there's pushback, we will often, or if it's a highly political topic, we will make sure that we're confident that we've got a majority. But a lot of these topics, that's obviously an exception, but many of these topics are very operational, and for the most part, we send them out and we check that you're comfortable, and we're very open to the feedback, but we don't always go to a vote because they are often very operational. And we did recently review this, and the feedback was broadly, look, just keep it less bureaucratic with fewer meetings and votes. But for these topics, I think it is very important that elected members have those conversations and that you are very comfortable amongst all of you. And I will leave that decision making in your hands.
Great, thanks for that clarity.
Thank you. Right, I think we're done with questions. We'll put the recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the report, legislation and consultation update for November 2024. Ross will move that. Thank you, Glenda. Any debate? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. The work programme is our final item for today. Is there any questions? Thank you. That's moved Robin and Peter second. Was there any questions of it? So we don't run away. All right, no debate. Just before we put this, I put this recommendation to the vote. I just want to say thank you to our team. This is our last meeting of the year. And when I say our team, I mean our management team and our collective of councillors. I think we all do quite well to muddle along and generally be pretty collegial. And I appreciate the participation and contribution of all of you. So without further ado, the final meeting of the year, thank you. Wish you well over the Christmas and New Year period and look forward to being back with you next year.
Carrie?
I'm just getting there. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So it just leaves us to close with a karakia, and I think Judd's name's on that.
Kia te karakia wakamutanga. E oha ki runga ki a Ranganui, e oha ki raro ki a Papatūnuku, wakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi. Ki te pau o te ware, he taonga, he mahi a muri, ka puta, ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama, haumi e, hui e, tai e. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Thanks, everybody.